question is, how many predictions or prophecies do you have to have right in order to be considered a modern-day prophet? Well, I've counted some of Joseph Smith Jr.'s prophecies, and I believe he measures up to quite a high standard. I believe he's hit many of them right on. 1. The War in Heaven, predating Velikovsky's World in Collision by over 100 years. 2. The 26,000-year precession of the equinox, known to astronomers and the ancients as the Great Year.
The Earth's axis points at the North Star, and the heavens have been revolving around that star since the dawn of time. Except they haven't. When the Egyptians built the pyramids, the North Star wasn't our current North Star, Polaris. No, it was Thuban. Why did it change? It's because the Earth's axis is moving. This motion was first discovered by Hipparchus. He was looking at the positions of the stars and comparing them with their positions a century earlier at the same time of year. He found that the stars were moving at least 1 degree every century.
This acceleration works against the force of gravity, so you actually weigh less at the equator.
And you weigh more when you're at the North Pole, 1% more.
This also causes the Earth to bulge. The Earth is 26 miles wider at the equator.
Because the Earth is not a perfect sphere, the gravitational force of the Sun isn't perfectly balanced. One side of the Earth gets tugged just a little bit more, and this causes the Earth's axis to spin, completing one revolution every 26,000 years. This also affects the length of the year. So, what's different? Well, if the Earth's axis is moving, it could line up with the Sun before the Earth has returned to its original location. This is what happens. Although the effect is small, the axis only moves about 1/100th of a degree, and a tropical year is only 20 minutes shorter than a sidereal year. How did this affect the development of the calendar? Let's go back to the Romans. You may remember Julius Caesar as the man who conquered the Gauls, overthrew the Roman Republic, and named the month of July after himself. But in his free time, he cleaned up the Roman calendar, which was a total mess. Before Caesar, the calendar lasted between 355 days and 378 days. Caesar put it at 365 days, with a leap day every 4 years. This was the Western calendar, until Pope Gregory XIII said, "That's not good enough." He removed some of the leap days to better match the length of a tropical year. The Gregorian calendar wasn't adopted in Russia until 1918, and as a result, the Russians showed up at the 1908 Olympics 12 days late.
3. The last battle of the Book of Mormon occurring at the hill Cumorah and fought by the angel Moroni. In reality, the last battle of Earth is now occurring at the island of Comoros, capital city Moroni, just off the north coast of Madagascar. Coincidence? I don't think so.
scientists are at a loss to explain a strange seismic event that shook the planet on November 11th and was picked up by earthquake sensors stationed across the globe. While the cause of this mysterious disturbance remains unknown, it's somehow linked to an ongoing seismic swarm that's been rumbling the archipelago of Mayotte in the Indian Ocean for several months, but just what these unusual tremors ultimately signify remains unclear. I don't think I've seen anything like it, seismologist Goran Ekstrom from Columbia University told National Geographic about the November 11th anomaly. The network of islands and islets, located roughly halfway between Africa and Madagascar, is governed by France, but is also claimed by the island nation of Comoros. On the morning of May 10th, this region was rocked by a quake that turned up without warning, and which didn't come alone, being followed by a series of hundreds of tremors that have yet to disappear. The most dramatic of these, a 5.8 magnitude event on May 15th, was the largest quake ever recorded in the Comoros Basin. If so, this could also explain something else. Mayotte is not stationary. GPS readings indicate that since July, after the swarm began, the island has shifted approximately 60 mm 2.4 into the east and 30 mm 1.2 in south. If the hypothesis turns out to be correct, nobody can say for sure what might happen, but the modeling indicates Mayotte may keep moving as long as the swarm persists.
But something occurred on November 11th, 2018, that created a strange seismic wave that rippled around the globe. Nobody, including experts in Hawaii, can't figure out why. It started out about 15 miles off the shores of Mayotte, a small French island between Africa and the northern tip of Madagascar. And I'm going to take you there right now. Let's go to the earthquakes, and here we are at the USGS earthquake page. This is Mayotte. This is where it originated from, the strange seismic wave. And you can see that there was an earthquake back on the 27th, a 5.0. And I want you to pay attention to the depth. 10 kilometers is 6.2 miles deep. Now I'm going to show you many more earthquakes that are at the 6.2 mile depth in just a matter of a week in the month of November. And there's something very mysterious going on at the 6.2 mile depth, and I think it's associated with this ripple. Continuing on, the soft rumbling, mostly undetectable by humans, moved across the globe. It was detected in places like Zambia, Kenya, Ethiopia. It then crossed the Atlantic, and this is where you can track these things on seismographs. To Chile, South America. The ripples were even detected up in Canada and, of course, Hawaii, which is some 11,000 miles away from the point of origin, which is over here east of Africa, north of Madagascar, right in that area that I just showed you. And it went all the way around the globe at 6.2 miles deep. In fact, all of these earthquakes you see here, 5.0 in Mayotte, 4.7 in Chagos, 5.3 in the southwest Indian Ridge, all at 10 kilometers, 10 kilometers, 10 kilometers. That's 6.2 miles deep. I'm going to show.
Maybe this was the old equator of the Earth. This line starting at Nazca, going through Angkor Wat, and then just going around the world. A direct line between Nazca and Angkor Wat. If this was indeed the old equator of the Earth, then the old North Pole would have had to been in southeastern Alaska. That's how the Earth would have got thrown off its axis by so much. But it says this: studies have shown that at 10,178 BC, or over 12,000 years ago, the celestial pole was inclined at an angle of 30 degrees from its present position. This in turn strongly suggests that the terrestrial axis then oriented differently from today. Maybe this indeed was the old equator of the Earth. Down here at Giza, from Giza up to this proposed North Pole is 6,215 miles. From Nazca up to this North Pole is 6,215 miles. From Nazca to Giza is 7,677 miles. So if you plot that out on a piece of paper with a base of 7,677 and angles going, or the two sides going up 6,215 miles, if you put that up on a piece of paper, a flat piece of paper, you are going to have a triangle, a pyramid with angles of 51.5 degrees, the exact same as the Great Pyramid. Is that just a coincidence? Seems to me ancient sites were marked all around the earth by sacred geometry and other things, and I just find a whole bunch of things very interesting about this Nazca to Angkor Wat line. Maybe it definitely was a possibility that this was the ancient equator of the earth.
The sun is tilted by 6 degrees with respect to the plane.
5. The axial correction of the earth in the latter days. The axial correction of the earth in the latter days, predicting planet 9 that shifts the entire solar system, including the sun, to its correct position, due north.
Of the planets. The reason for the non-zero solar obliquity has been a mystery since it was first discovered by Sir Richard Carrington in the mid-1800s. It turns out that planet 9 can actually tilt the sun.
The fact that the sun is tilted, even if it's only by 6 degrees, the fact that the sun is tilted, the sun is the most massive thing in our solar system by a huge margin. And it's oriented differently than everything else in the solar system. That is an incredibly strange phenomenon for which there really have not been that many explanations even attempted over the last 150 years. It's naturally explained by Planet 9 being exactly where we think Planet 9 is, which it's one of these mysteries that we think is now solved, that's been such a mystery that people haven't even really talked about it very much over the last 150 years because it's just been so difficult to think of why it is.
It has been known since the mid-1800s that the sun is tilted. Over the years, people have put forth various explanations for it. One possibility is that the sun was interacting with the protoplanetary disk via magnetic fields. It's also possible that the disk was just asymmetrical from the beginning. And it's also possible that the sun actually had a stellar companion a long time ago.
So 6. The New Jerusalem being located in Jackson County, Missouri. X marks the spot of the lunar eclipses starting in 2017 and followed by the rare eclipse of 2024 in which it crosses. X marks the spot right in Jackson County, Missouri. Predicted and prophesied by Joseph Smith. Coincidence? I don't think so.
It looks like X marks the spot for the best viewing area for these upcoming rare solar eclipses. It's not all the time we get a chance to catch the totality of a solar eclipse here in this country. And as you can see here on this map, the first one that's going to come through this year in 2017 is going to pass through this route here. 7 years later, it's going to pass through this route here. What is interesting is along the whole path that this eclipse takes, not only do these two paths cross here, but the point of the greatest duration throughout the whole thing is right there within that diamond as well. So I look to be on the ground covering this August 21st down here somewhere around Paducah, Kentucky, just north of New Madrid. It's where
this total solar eclipse is incredibly significant to the Jewish people of Israel. But what about us here in America? Is there anything occurring in the next 10 years that could be incredibly significant for us. I would like to look at 2 total solar eclipses that will be happening within the next 10 years that I believe are very, very significant to the inhabitants of the United States of America, which I believe 100% is the lands of the Book of Mormon, the Promised Land. And these 2 solar eclipses will be occurring on August 21st, 2017 and April 8th, 2024. When the moon passes between the earth and the sun shines on the moon and the shadow of the moon is cast down on the surface of the earth. It's the whole reason why you have an eclipse. You are literally in the shadow of the moon passing over you. And the total solar eclipse, the path of the shadow of the moon for August 21st, 2017, crosses the entire United States of America. But what's even more significant about that is there is a point where the moon and the sun are in perfect alignment. This is when it is a total, a 100% solar eclipse. And the 100% solar eclipse for August 21st, 2017, where it actually begins, is just north of Jackson County, Missouri, the New Jerusalem. And that in and of itself is certainly significant. But then, when we look at the path of the shadow of the moon for the solar eclipse of April 8th, 2024, we see, very similarly to how the comets of Hyakutake and Hale-Bopp came in at 2 different angles through the star Algol, we have the shadow of the moon crossing over one another directly over the heartland of America, the Promised Land of the Book of Mormon. And it is the area where the shadow of the moon, because of the solar eclipse, crosses over one another is what's called the Crossroads of Totality. And we need to look to that area. Is there anything significant that happened in southern Illinois where the Crossroads of Totality for these 2 eclipses will be taking place? That is the area where the crossroads will be. Is there anything at all significant about that area? Anything at all that occurred either in our own history or in Book of Mormon history that we should look to? And the answer is absolutely. Let's read from the Book of Mormon, 3 Nephi 3, 18 to 21. Now the chiefest among all the chief captains and the great commander of all the armies of the Nephites was appointed, and his name was Gidgiddoni. Now it was the custom among all the Nephites to appoint for their chief captains, save it were in their times of wickedness, someone that had the spirit of revelation and also prophecy. Therefore, this Gidgiddoni was
Giga what? Oh no, I don't know. The prophet in the Book of Mormon, which basically identifies giga or gig means light wheel, a wheel such as a chariot that crosses the sky, and giga in computer language means billion. So did Joseph Smith predict accurately a billion-year time period for each of these galactic ticks that occurs according to the web every 230 million years? The Earth goes around, circumnavigates the entire galaxy. You times these by 8 or times these by 7 or times these by 9, Christ will return at the 2 billion year crossing of the galaxies. So that predicts the wheel within the wheel of Ezekiel. 1 billion one wheel, 1 billion the other wheel, 2 billion, and Christ returns.
was a great prophet among them, as also was the chief judge.